Have you ever wandered through a Minecraft village at night? The torches flickering, the beds neatly arranged, farms ripe with crops, yet no one is there. Silence isn't just empty, it's loaded. It hums with the expectation of life, of voices, of footsteps. Yet there's nothing, just the wind. This is the essence of a liminal space, place caught between purpose and abandonment. In real life, liminal spaces are empty most at 3 a.m., deserted subway stations, or abandoned playgrounds. They feel eerie because they were designed for people, yet now stand vacant. Minecraft replicates this feeling perfectly. Villages, mine shafts, and strongholds. They all have structure of civilization, but none of its soul. Your brain notices the dissonance. When you enter a mine shaft, you see the wooden supports, the rails, the torches. Someone built this, but where are they? Did they vanish? Were they ever real? The game never answers that, and that's what makes it unsettling. Minecraft's world generation is brilliant because it doesn't just create random landscapes. It creates ruins, structures, and remnants that imply history. A desert temple isn't just a pile of sandstone. It's a carefully constructed trap with a treasure at its heart. An abandoned nether portal isn't just obsidian and crying obsidian. It's a gateway that once led to somewhere and is now crumbling. This illusion of purpose is what makes the loneliness so profound. When you find an igloo with a hidden basement in a brewing stand, you don't just think, huh, neat. You think, who was here? Why did they need to hide? Game gives you just enough detail to suggest a story, but never enough to confirm one. The loneliness in Minecraft isn't just about being alone, it's about being late. These places weren't meant for you, they were meant for someone else. You're walking to the aftermath of a story you'll never know. Think about the strongholds. Massive sprawling underground complexes with libraries, prisons, and portals. Who built them? Why? Were they trying to escape? Were they preparing for something? The end portal sits there, silent as if waiting for someone who will never come, and now you're the only one left to activate it. This is why single-player Minecraft can feel so isolating. Multiplayer worlds are alive with friends, but in solo survival, you're an archaeologist sifting through the ruins of a civilization that doesn't really exist. Minecraft's audio plays a huge role in this feeling. The ambient sounds, the dripping water, and the distant cave echoes aren't just atmospheric, they're haunting. They remind you that the world is vast, empty, and indifferent. C418's soundtrack compounds this. Tracks like Subwoofer Lullaby and Living Mice aren't just peaceful, they're melancholic. They evoke nostalgia for a past you never experienced, a world that feels familiar yet unknowable. Procedural generation is what makes Minecraft's emptiness so powerful. Unlike handcrafted games where every detail is intentional, Minecraft structures are almost logical, but not quite. A village might generate with a well in the middle, but the houses are arranged nonsensically. A mineshaft might intersect with a ravine, leaving broken bridges and dangling tracks. This near logic is what unsettles us. Our brain seeks patterns, and when we see something that almost makes sense, but doesn't, it triggers unease. It's like finding a book where every other page is torn out. You can glimpse the story, but never fully grasp it. Minecraft structures aren't just abandoned, they're artifacts. They feel like remnants of a lost civilization, much like how ancient ruins in our world hint at forgotten empires. The difference is, in Minecraft, there was never a civilization to begin with. The game generates the illusion of a history without ever providing the history itself. This is the relic effect. When you find a ruined portal, it's not just a broken structure. It's a failed structure. It implies that someone tried to build a gateway to another dimension but didn't succeed. Or maybe they did and never came back. The game leaves it open, and that ambiguity is what makes it haunting. Human brains are wired for a narrative. When we see something mysterious, we need to fill in the gaps. Minecraft exploits this by giving us fragments. A desert temple has a hidden TNT trap in it. Why? An end city floats in the void. Who lived here? A woodland mansion has secret rooms. What were they hiding? But the game never answers. It dangles the possibility of lore, then snatches it away. This creates a unique blend of horror. Not jump scares or monsters, but the dread of the unknown. Nowhere is this feeling stronger than in the nether. Nether fortresses stretch endlessly, with blaze spawners sitting in empty courtyards. Bridges span over lava lakes, leading to dead ends. The whole dimension feels like a failed construction project, a place that was never meant to be something grand but left unfinished. And then there are the bastion remnants, black stone structures with piglet loot and crumbling walkways. These aren't just ruins, they're battlefields. You can almost imagine a war happening here, but the game never tells you. You're left to piece together a history that doesn't exist. In most games, you're the hero. The world exists for you. But in Minecraft, you're an outsider. The villages weren't built for you. The strongholds weren't waiting for you. They're just passing through a world that wasn't meant to be seen like this. This is why Hero Brian myths took off so strongly in early Minecraft. Players wanted there to be someone else, another builder, another survivor. The idea that the world had a creator, even a hostile one, was less terrifying than the idea that it was always empty. Ultimately, Minecraft's loneliness works because it leaves room for your mind to fill in the gaps. Unlike horror games that force a narrative, Minecraft simply presents a world and lets you interpret it. That's why these spaces stick with you, because you made them real in your head. When you stand in an abandoned mineshaft listening to the echoes, you're not just playing a game, you're uncovering a mystery that was never meant to be solved. And that's what makes it profoundly, beautifully lonely. The paradox of procedural nostalgia. Minecraft's world generation doesn't just create landscapes, it creates memories that never existed. When you stumble upon a lone oak tree in a plains biome, its branches stretching just so, or a perfectly circular pond nestled between hills, it feels designed not by code but by human hands. This phenomenon known as procedural nostalgia tricks the brain into believing these spaces have history. A swamp hut with its crooked fence must have been built by a witch. A shipwreck half buried in sand must have been screwed by sailors, but there's no evidence, just the ghost of intention. The horror of almost recognizable spaces unsettles us because they hover between the familiar and the alien. In Minecraft, this manifests in structures that are almost logical but just slightly off. These imperfections aren't bugs, they're unconscious storytelling. The brain is desperate for a meaning, starts spinning theories. Maybe the villagers vanish, maybe the miners fled. The game never confirms anything, leaving you stranded in uncertainty. The loneliness of repeating patterns. Minecraft structures aren't unique. Every village shares the same blueprints, every nether fortress, the same corridors. At first, this feels comforting. You learn the rules, but eventually it becomes eerie. You've seen this exact blacksmith shop before, this same library, this identical portal room. It's like walking through a dream where everything is almost real, but slightly duplicated. The realization that these places are mass produced by an algorithm makes them feel hollow. You're not discovering a lost civilization. You're walking through a museum of copies. Even Minecraft's creatures contribute to the loneliness. Zombie groans in the distance, their voice muffled as if through walls, Endermen whispering a language you can't understand. The sounds suggest presence, but when you turn the corner, nothing. This is auditory uncanny valley. Your brain expects a source for the noise, but the game denies it. The moans and whispers become ghosts, always just out of sight. The terror of the world border. Few things in Minecraft are as quietly horrifying as reaching the Farlands in older versions, or hitting the world border in modern ones. The terrain glitches, the sounds, and then nothing. An invisible wall beyond it, the void. This is the game's way of saying you weren't meant to go further. The world isn't infinite, just pretending to be. The illusion shatters and suddenly you're trapped in a snow globe. The end dimension as the ultimate liminal space. The end is the pinnacle of Minecraft's loneliness. A barren wasteland of obsidian pillars and floating islands. No weather, no ambient sounds, just the hum of the void, and the distant scream of an enderman. And then the end cities, towering empty, filled with treasures but devoid of life. The shulkers, mimics that pretend to be blocks, are the only inhabitants, and they attack on sight. The entire dimension feels like a tomb for something greater, a place where the real inhabitants are long gone. The deep dark and the abandoned past. The ancient cities of the deep dark take this further. These sprawling ruins are littered with skunk sensors and wardens, guardians of dead civilization. The reinforced deep slate, the eerie sculptures, everything suggests a people who knew they were doomed. But what doomed them? The wardens or something worse? The game leaves it open, making our presence feel like trespassing. And here's the question: why do we keep returning to the loneliness? Well, there's comfort in the unknowable. Paradoxically, Minecraft's loneliness is also its comfort. The mystery is why players build homes in solitary worlds, light fires in tundra biomes, and return to their bases after long explorations. There's peace in being the last one. No expectations, no history, just you and the world. The player is the storyteller. Minecraft's greatest strength is that it needs you to fill in the gaps. The loneliness isn't a flaw, it's an invitation. You're not just a survivor, you're the author. Every torch you place, every house you build is a rebellion against the emptiness. There's beauty in the abandoned. Minecraft's liminal spaces are beautiful because they remind us of impermanence. Everything decays, strongholds crumble, portals break, but for now, you're here. And that's enough. And the psychological impact of infinite isolation is that it's a phenomenon. Minecraft's loneliness extends beyond simple game design and taps into fundamental human psychology. When players encounter these empty structures, they experience what the psychologists call the existential spatial awareness, the unsettling realization of being alone in a vast and different world. This mirrors real world experiences like walking to an abandoned shopping mall or returning to one's childhood home after decades away. Minecraft's procedural generation creates a unique psychological effect where players simultaneously feel like both intruders and inheritors of these abandoned places. The game triggers our innate pattern seeking behavior, causing us to assign human intention to algorithmically generate structures, create elaborate backstories for ruins that have no actual history, experience genuine grief for civilizations that never existed. The isolation becomes particularly profound during night cycles. When the world's emptiness is most apparent, players report developing actual coping mechanisms like building elaborate homes as psychological comfort zones, creating companion pets to combat the silence, developing rituals like lighting every cave they explore. Marga's abandoned spaces serve as a cultural mirror reflecting our modern anxieties about digital preservation. What happens when servers shut down? The ephemeral nature of online communities, the psychological impact of virtual spaces. Ruin function as a digital archaeology site that tells stories about one, the players who came before, two, the game's own development history, three, our collective fear of being the last person online. Interestingly, this phenomenon has spawned real world artistic moments where creators build intentionally abandoned looking structures, create ruin core aesthetic builds, document their worlds as if they're future archaeological sites. The most poignant examples appear on abandoned multiplayer servers, where player built cities stand empty, actual digital ghost towns that parallel Minecraft's generated ruins. These spaces become meta commentaries on the temporary nature of digital existence, making Minecraft's loneliness not just a game mechanic, but profound meditation on the human condition in the digital age. The game's enduring popularity suggests we're drawn to these lonely spaces precisely because they allow us to safely explore our deepest fears about abandonment, impermanence, and the ultimate fate of our own creations, both digitally and physically. Minecraft's greatest trick is making players believe in a past that doesn't exist. Unlike traditional open world games where ruins are carefully placed to imply lore, Minecraft's ruins are mathematically generated. Minecraft's abandoned structures eerily parallel real-world digital decay. Dead multiplayer servers equals digital ghost towns, just as generated ruins feel empty. Abandoned player builds become true liminal spaces. The fear of being forgotten. In a world where online spaces shut down without warning, Minecraft's ruins remind us that everything becomes empty eventually. And the question is, why we keep going back to the loneliness?
Despite of or because of its isolation, Minecraft remains beloved. It's a safe space for melancholy. The loneliness isn't oppressive, it's contemplative. The player has the last light. Every torch you place, every house you build is the defiance of the void. And the final thoughts are the beauty in the void. Minecraft's loneliness isn't a flaw, it's the game's soul. It forces us to confront the fragility of existence, the need for meaning and emptiness, and the comfort of being the one who remains. And you have reached the end of this video. Thank you for staying by me, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.